We are continuing this evening in our study of Samson. And when we last left off, our hero was on the way to his wedding. And that's where we're going to pick up in Judges chapter 14. And in Judges 14, we arrive at the point where Samson is there at his actual wedding feast. And in verse 10, so his father went down unto the woman, and Samson made there a feast, for so used the young men to do. And the father going down, that's talking about him making the actual wedding arrangements. That's what that's all about. And they had a feast, that's what they used to do, and it came to pass in verse 11, when they saw him, they being the family of his wife, the woman he was going to marry, and her friends and so forth, that they brought 30 companions to be with him. So they brought 30 companions. These are not people Samson brought. He didn't invite these guys. But somebody decided that, well, here's 30 companions for you, Samson. I don't know if they were all like part of the wedding party, if they all wore tuxedos and came out with him from the side or down the front. Don't know how that worked, but it said that they had 30 companions for him. These companions, these are not friends of his, as I said, and they are the enemy. And you have to remember that this wedding and this wife that he's taking, this is not because Samson one day sees this gal and she's just the prettiest thing and he falls in love and decides to marry her, and now this is just the happiest occasion. That's not what this is all about. This is about Samson finding a reason to take on the enemy. Samson picking a fight. Not because Samson was just an ornery cuss, not because Samson was just a guy that didn't get along with people or liked to bully people, but because this is what his life was all about. He was called to begin to deliver Israel out of the hand of the Philistines. They were the enemy. They attacked them. They occupied their land. This is the people that have just kind of put the boot to Israel. And Samson is the one who is going to begin to fight them. But to do that, he has to have a reason to get these guys to fight. Why? Did he need a reason? Because Israel, and we talked about this last time, Israel by this point in time has been so weakened, so intimidated, so put down by the Philistines that they're just afraid of them. They're afraid, and they're afraid to do anything to provoke them. They're afraid to do anything to rub them the wrong way. Anything that they do, my goodness, in their mind, this is just asking for trouble. And so Samson, in doing this, in delivering them, he has to do it in a way where he at least does not end up having to fight his own countrymen as well as the enemy. This is verse 12. And Samson said unto them, unto these companions, I will now put forth a riddle, which was a very common thing to do. This wasn't just, Samson was the riddler. It was common in those days to do riddles. It was something people did, Now they play board games, then they did riddles. If you can certainly declare it me within 7 days of the feast and find it out, then I will give you 30 sheets and 30 changes of garment. So this is the deal. He says, look, I'm going to give you guys a whole new set of clothes. I'm going to give you these other materials, all of these things, if you can solve this riddle. And he said unto them, here's the riddle, verse 14. Out of the eater came forth meat, and out of the strong came forth sweetness. And they could not in 3 days expound the riddle. Now, this riddle relates back to what happened on his way to the feast. Do you remember that last time, and if you were part of it last time, that on the way to the wedding, Samson encountered a lion. He encountered this lion, and he killed the lion with his bare hands. And then a short time after that, he found that the bees had made a nest or hive there, and there was honey in the carcass of the lion. So this is where this riddle is coming from. Out of the eater, the lion, came forth meat, and out of the strong came forth sweetness, the honey. Verse 15. And it came to pass on the seventh day. These guys have been working on this, and they don't want to look bad, and they want those nice clothes. That they said unto Samson's wife, Entice thy husband, that he may declare unto us the riddle, lest we burn thee and thy father's house with fire. Have ye called us to take that we have? Is it not so? So this is his wife, and they're threatening her and her father if she cannot somehow find out the meaning of the riddle. Verse 16. And Samson's wife wept before him, and said, Thou dost hate me and lovest me not. Thou hast put forth a riddle unto the children of my people, and hast not told it me. And he said unto her, Behold, I have not told it my father nor my mother, and shall I tell it thee? And she wept before him the 7th day. What a fun wedding that must have been, right? 7-day feast wedding, and that whole time she's just carrying on and crying and telling Samson how, oh, you don't love me. If you love me, you would tell me this, and so on. And it came to pass on the 7th day that he told her, because she lay sore upon him, and she told the riddle to the children of her people. This is the first time you see Samson's got a real soft spot for women. And that soft spot's in his head. She just plays him. Now, granted, she's got some real motivation, but nonetheless, she cries, she manipulates him, she just keeps it up until she wears him down. And she does wear him down. She does wear him down. She may be the first, but she's not the last of women to do this to him. And the last will be literally the death of him. We'll get to that next time. I'd like to read you a little bit about this custom of the riddle and a little bit more. Let me finish this first. Verse 18. And the men of the city said unto him on the 7th day before the sun went down, What is sweeter than honey? Like, aren't we clever? And what is stronger than a lion? And he said unto them, If ye had not plowed with my heifer, ye had not found out my riddle. That's got to be, to the Western mind, the most insulting, the greatest insult to women in the Bible. But to the Eastern mind, it didn't play the same way. Okay? Let's read here a little bit about some of the Eastern custom and idiom that we've just covered. It is a very ancient custom. This is from Eastern Customs and Idioms of the Bible, The Teachings of Orientalism by Bishop K.C. Pillai. It is a very ancient custom to put a riddle before a group of people in the East. Samson had proposed a riddle to the groomsmen, and they had plagued his bride until she obtained the answer to the riddle. The Philistine men did not have the brains to figure out the riddle, so they went to Samson's wife for the answer. She went and cried for the answer. Culturally, the Oriental tells important matters to first his mother, second his father, third his teacher, fourth God, and fifth his wife. So Samson said here, Dad comes first and I haven't told him, and you want me to tell you? Samson said to them, If ye had not plowed with my heifer, ye had not found out my riddle. A heifer is a young cow that has not been calved. This is what some people in the East call a bride who is just married before she has the first child. It is not meant to be derogatory. Certain tribes use this term in a sort of slang language. It is not used by cultured people, however. After a woman has a child, she is no longer called a heifer. Very seldom, and if it was us, she'd never have that child if the husband was calling her that all the time. Very seldom is a heifer put to the yoke for plowing. It is illegal to put a heifer by the side of a bull for plowing. The law says you are not unequally yoked together. The oxen, which are used for plowing, are kept in the furrow by means of pricking with a goad, which is a nail fixed on the end of a stick. The goad or prick is held against the ox's thigh so that when he kicks it, the more he kicks it, the more it hurts. In the book of Judges, the men scared and pricked Samson's wife, which is why the phrase plowed my heifer is used. Samson is saying that the bride was goaded by the groomsmen. Verse 19. And the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, upon Samson. What happened to him? The Spirit of the Lord came upon him. And this is going to be now the first time that Samson directly engages the enemy in a fight. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he went down to Ashkelon, and slew 30 men of them, and took their spoil, and gave changes of garments unto them which expounded the riddle. Well, here's your clothes, fellas. But what they had done in threatening and so intimidating his wife was just cause for him to go out and do this. And his anger was kindled, and he went up to his father's house. But Samson's wife was given to his companion, whom he had used as a friend, or in the ESV, best man. So Samson, after this, he goes back to his home, to his father's house. And it doesn't say he was gone for years here. He's gone for a short time. And his father-in-law now gives his wife to somebody else to be their wife. There's nothing in the law, there's nothing in anything, in any tradition that allowed this, that made this legal. It wasn't okay with, if your husband doesn't come home right after he's gone out shopping, then we'll just give you to somebody else. This was completely wrong. She was Samson's wife. She was Samson's wife. There's no record of anything. There's no mention of them going through any kind of divorce proceedings, which they would have had to do by any of the land's customs. Instead, she's just given to somebody else. Judges 15, verse 1. But it came to pass within a while after, in the time of wheat harvest, indicating the passing of seasons, not years, that Samson visited his wife with a kid. He brought her a little goat. Nowadays, maybe a little puppy is what you would give, but he brought her this little kid, this little goat as a present. And he said, I will go into my wife into the chamber. But her father would not suffer him to go in. He wouldn't allow him. He comes, he's got a little present for the woman. He says, okay, well, I'm going to go in and consummate my marriage here. But the father-in-law doesn't let him. And her father said, I verily thought that thou utterly hated her. Therefore I gave her to thy companion. Is not her younger sister fairer than she? Take her, I pray thee, instead of her. Yeah. What this amounts to clearly is adultery on the part of his wife, and her father is complicit in it. And adultery was a very serious offense under the law, one punishable by death. Verse 3. And Samson said concerning them, Now shall I be more blameless than the Philistines, though I do them a displeasure. Even though I'm about to do something to them, I am blameless because of this. And Samson went and caught 300 foxes, and took firebrands, torches, and turned tail to tail, and put a firebrand in the midst between two tails. I just love trying to picture him doing this, Then he goes out and he catches 300 of these foxes, and he ties their tails together with a torch tied between those two tails. And when he had set the brands on fire, when he lit the torches, he let them go into the standing corn of the Philistines, and burn up both the shocks and also the standing corn with the vineyards and olives. Wow. Yeah, so these foxes, he lets them loose in the fields, and they go burning up all the crops. But you know what? This is more than just an act of kind of revenge or mischievousness. Doing this to the fields was very significant to the Philistines, because their God was the God of the harvest, the God of the crops. So here, in doing this, he's showing them that your God has no power against me. Then the Philistines, verse 6, said, Who hath done this? And they answered, Samson, the son-in-law of the Timnite, because he had taken his wife and given her to his companion. And the Philistines came up and burnt her and her father with fire. Yeah. Now, again, the penalty for adultery was death, but that wasn't theirs to execute. It was Samson if he wanted to, and he didn't have to. But that was an option that he could have. But they certainly, in killing his wife, had totally given him full cause to do anything. And he does. Boy, does he. Verse 7. And Samson said unto them, Though you have done this, yet will I be avenged of you, and after that will I cease. And he smote them hip and thigh with a great slaughter, and he went down and dwelt in the top of the rock Etam. So these men that were responsible for this, he kills them all, and then he goes and he's camped out on this rock called Edom. And the Philistines went up and pitched in Judah. That doesn't mean that they went there to have a ball game or play cricket or whatever else. Pitch means that they have now set up camp against them, that they are getting ready to fight Israel. They are getting ready to make war against them for what Samson has done. And they spread themselves in Lehi, and the men of Judah said, Why are you come up against us? They're asking the Philistines, what's the problem? Why are you doing this to us? Why are you getting ready to fight us? Why are you getting ready to kill us? And they answered, To bind Samson are we come up, to do to him as he has done to us. We're here to get Samson. We're ready to kill him. We're ready to set him on fire. Then 3,000 men of Judah went to the top of the rock Edom and said to Samson, Samson, they're out to get you. We're ready to join forces with you and fight the enemy. No, they didn't do that. They should have done that. Samson was the judge. He was the one who was leading them. He was the one that God had sent to be the leader. He's the one that God had sent to lead them in battle, but they ain't following. Again, this is the only of the judges who has to do it alone. Gideon, he had an army with him. Deborah, she had an army with her. These different judges, when they took on the enemy, they weren't doing it single-handedly. But Samson not only is doing it single-handedly, he has to try to keep his own people from hurting him. Knowest thou, continuing in verse 11, they said to Samson, knowest thou not that the Philistines are rulers over us? What is this that thou hast done unto us? And he said unto them, as they did unto me, so I have done unto them. What I did was just. What I did was right. You know that. But you're so afraid of these guys that you're, instead of backing me, supporting me, fighting with me, you are about to turn me over to the enemy. You are about to betray me. That's what's going on. And they said unto him, we are come down to bind thee. We're going to tie you up, that we may deliver thee into the hand of the Philistines. We're going to tie you up and we're going to give you over to them. And Samson said unto them, swear unto me that you will not fall upon me yourselves. Okay, I'll let you do that, but promise me that once you tie me up, that you aren't going to kill me yourself. You're not going to attack me. I'll go along with this, but I'm not going to let you hurt me, and you've got to promise that. Why? Because he was afraid of these guys? No. But because simply he's supposed to deliver these guys out of the hand of the Philistines, not kill them for getting in the way of that. Verse 13, and they spake unto him, saying, no, but we'll bind thee fast, and deliver thee into their hand. But surely we will not kill thee. We'll just let them do it. And they bound him with 2 new cords, 2 new ropes, and brought him upon the rock. We'll see how those 2 new ropes are really going to keep him bound. Verse 14, and when he came unto Lehi, the Philistines shouted against him, and the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him. Here again, the Spirit of the Lord. Each time Samson does one of these incredible, mighty feats, these miraculous, because boy, that's what it took to be able to do this. It's the Spirit of the Lord, showing that it's not Samson being the strongest guy, not Samson being, more built than Arnold Schwarzenegger in his heyday, or, tougher than the greatest heavyweight champ. No, it's the Spirit of the Lord that enabled him to do these things. And he goes on to say, it came mightily upon him, and the cords, verse 14, that were upon his arms became as flax that was burnt with fire, and his bands loosed from off his hands. These ropes were nothing. It was like flax that had already been burnt. It was that easy to break. Verse 15, and he found a new jawbone of an ass, and put forth his hand, and took it, and slew 1,000 men therewith. Verse 16. And Samson said, with the jawbone of an ass, heap upon heaps, with the jawbone of an ass have I slain 1,000 men. Wow. 1,000 men. 1,000 men with his only weapon being the jawbone of an ass. I can't even imagine how long that would take to kill 1,000 men single-handedly. And he probably was pretty good at it. But what an incredible thing. What an incredible thing. It's somewhere in the Word of God it talks about that one will go up against 1,000, and this is the one that actually does it. He kills 1,000 men on that day. And it came to pass in verse 17, when he had made an end of speaking, that he cast away the jawbone out of his hand, and called that place Ramathali. And he was sore athirst. I guess you get pretty thirsty after you kill 1,000 guys with just the jawbone of an ass. And he called on the Lord and said, Thou hast given this great deliverance into the hand of thy servant. And now shall I die for thirst and fall into the hand of the uncircumcised? You know, why is it that all these guys, when they come to God, it's always like, what? Now I'm going to die of thirst? What? You brought us out here to starve? But God is gracious, and he takes care of them. But God, verse 19, clave a hollow place that was in the jaw, and there came water thereout. And when he had drunk, his spirit came again, and he revived. Wherefore he called the name thereof Enhakor, which is in Lehi unto this day. Verse 20. And he, Samson, judged Israel in the days of the Philistines 20 years. You know, that phrase that concludes this event, this whole section of Samson engaging the enemy, Samson fighting against them. This phrase, and he judged Israel or Judah in those days of the Philistines 20 years. You usually only find that kind of a phrase at the end of someone's life. At the end of a king's reign, it talks about how long he reigned. And this is not the end yet of Samson's life. It's not the end of the story. We got a whole other chapter. But it is significant that this marks the end of his actual reigning over them. This is the end of what Samson does as the deliverer of Judah. What follows is not going to be Samson still following God's lead, but Samson now straying from it. And we'll get into that next time. But boy, just to bring it back home, this record of Samson, the story and these mighty things that he did, it's not just a great, exciting story. It's not just something that to be inspired by in the sense of look what God did then. But it's for us to recognize the power that is ours, that we have that same Holy Spirit. We don't have the same mission. God didn't tell us to go start a fight with 1,000 guys, and I don't suggest you try it. But whatever we're up against, recognize that no odds are too great. With you and God, you make a majority in every situation.